VFX in one word for me is magic.
I think VFX for me in one word is real. Hi, I'm Kranti Sarma. I am head of studio for MPC India.
Hi, I'm Vijay Selvam, DFX Supervisor in Bangalore at MPC Technicolor.
We are on IGN India for India's VFX Revolution.
And here is a breakdown of the film 1917. The initial brief, there was one word in common, was it's going to be a single take movie. That's all that was known back in before we started the project, and this was very fresh. So when the movie started, then we got to see the plates coming in and more of the details unraveled after that, and all the rest of the VFX briefings were part of the show, along with keeping it a single take.
When 1917 was awarded, it was just like any other show to us out of the 50-60 shows that we see in our sheets. So it was nothing special, but yes, Sam Mendes, so it just sounded special. When the movie started getting briefed, that's when the excitement started building. When it became when we started hearing the conversation that it's a single shot, single take. For me, for somebody like me, I was more curious to understand or to know what it is, right? But very quickly this word spread around. It was extremely challenging, it was extremely new. So everybody, we realized, wanted to be part of the show globally and locally.
For the burning city, they had a huge array of lights, LED lights. We're talking about multi-story height level, and it's like a large building filled with LED lights, and they all have to sync to the pulsing of the fire light. So they had to mimic the firelight, and we had to replace that with the burning building. And we're talking about layout, we're talking about CG teams providing us the lighting, the FX fire, along with dressing up with practical fire, smoke elements, all in layers. Everything need to stretch for thousands of frames and play really well in the continuity, and all of them coming together eventually was really great. In the movie, in continuity, when you look at it, it is very much believable that it's a live action plane which crashed into the barn in one of the shots. But there were two plates as usual. There was a one long take without the plane, and the B plate had the plane in it with the fire and with the actor, the pilot, trying to get out of it. The first half of the shot is full CG flight coming in, crashing in with our FX teams, and we had to match to the B side of the plate which had everything live. So it was so seamless. Is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. We were mostly involved with using practical elements photorealistically. We're talking about, I just mentioned about the burning city where we used fire and smoke. We had a lot of dust elements, shot real life and added, Along with that, we had falling debris like we see in the tunnel sequence, and etc. So we had dressed the movie with a lot of practical elements, along with the large giant plumes you see in the far background. Everything were practical elements made to look as part of the film. There were various locations used for the project. One was this real life night sequence shot in the ruins, and there was a very different environment and a set which we need to deal with. And it had a very interesting lighting setup, once again going back to pre-production. Technically, it was very interesting what they did with the cranes carrying the flares across to create and mimic the movement of light and shadow, which was so dramatic in those shots. And in the film, you won't see any cranes because that has been meticulously removed. And we shouldn't forget there were reflections there too, and everything had to be, carefully looked at. This one is interesting because as the character is getting chased, he leaps off a bridge. While airborne, it starts switching into a full CG shot, and that bit itself is really challenging to make everything line up and make it look real. And there was no camera, so the camera had to be choreographed and animated very realistically so that it looks like, yes, a cameraman jumped off the bridge along with the actor into the water where everything is CG. And we go underwater and we come back up a little later on in the river. Until then, it's CG. An interesting scene in the movie was when both the soldiers start coming out of the trenches into this barren land. That's the first time, I think, they start showing the dramatic, open, and very, very moody landscape of nobody knows what lies ahead. So in that sequence in the no man's land, we had to dress up and extend the set with CG and add in fog, haze in depth to give extra sense of mood. And as the camera starts pulling in more and more into this land, we see that we had to deal with barbed wires. It was, it was a brief taken a little lightly initially, but then we saw how much challenging this was, since all this work had to lie behind the barbed wires, and that means each and every barbed wire had to be rotored and put on top of everything. So the barbed wire as an image is also, gave everybody a big it's a nightmare, and people, I'm sure, had that in their heads for a long time.
The most challenging part for me would have been the production and just putting all of these things together. There was no reference point from the past that we could work in a certain fashion. There was absolutely something that we were creating new. The creative piece, the technology, everything was just the first time that we were learning. And sitting miles away from the directors and where this is being shot, for it to come to us and then for us to bring it to life definitely was very challenging, inspiring at the same time, because we were working on absolutely something classic as this. Putting the whole piece of the production together, bringing the resources, which we had never done in the past. We work out of different buildings, different locations, but ensuring that everybody is seeing same, because it was a continuation of a shot, right? So everybody is looking this together, all the departments sitting together and looking at this together was definitely challenging from the operation and production perspective. I would say that was a huge challenge for us.
Yeah, our term we chose at that time was stitch, although in the industry stitch is used in various other areas too, where we have certain camera rigs which shoots 3 or 4 different angles and they stitch together. So that even that's called a stitch. But in this show, the stitch was it was very different. It's when we are talking about 2 plates shot at different times of the day, different locations, had to be put together. We are talking about blending backgrounds, blending actors, blending body parts, and the faces right in the middle of the screen on IMAX format. And putting all this together, we went with the word stitch. Another interesting fact was an example that even a blood stain, which is usually taken very lightly in any other project as a brief. So here, as a spoiler for the show, one of the actors gets stabbed and he has started to bleed. His clothing starts clotting with blood, and that had to be choreographed over thousands of frames so that by the time he reached the next stage, he has lost quite a lot of blood and he's losing his life. During this time, the blood had to obey the wrinkles on the cloth. It has to track on a live organic body. We had to maintain and integrate the blood with the wetness, and while we remove the pink tones of his body and his face, he has to go pale at the same time. So this happening over.
Being on AMPS or being nominated and eventually get selected for AMPS absolutely felt incredible and felt extremely special. Not coming from the visual effects background, I mean I've been with this industry for the last 10 years, but not coming from the background like many others who have achieved and who are on this platform, it just felt great to be nominated by the clients who are from Disney and by a very, very credible VFX supervisor on the client side. So it does feel awesome, and it just feels great to be sharing platform with such great names like who've been selected this year with me. 1917 did become a show that we took our entire studio to watch together. Watching together what has been done on the floor for a number of hours, just seeing it together, seeing it coming together was amazing experience. Right, and as the creative says, you are working on a shot and by the time you're eating your popcorn, your shot is gone. But in this case, it was just like, it was going along the way, and for entire 1.5 hours or 1 hour 59 minutes to be precise, you could, chat, you could engage with whoever you had worked with. So it was just so much of energy in the theater, and it was just absolutely a goosebump moment for me in particular. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation on breakdown of 1917.
And if you did, like, share and subscribe to IGN India.